I've always was a fan of, let's just start with like hip hop, right? And music, just music. And then I'm going to talk about hip hop a little bit because that was like the genre I fell in love with when I was young. Cause I'm a 90s high school. I was in,
hanging
94
around.
to 98.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say hanging around with you and B, like you guys are like a bank of knowledge when it comes to rap and music. It was crazy.
Well, yeah. I think the golden era, is that the right way to say it, of hip hop was like 96. I mean,
are people going to argue with that?
They might, but they might not. You know what I mean? Like if they really know hip hop, they might be like, yeah, that was, really if you look at what CDs released in that time and what was happening at that time. And, that was a pivotal moment. I was like, that's my sophomore, junior year in high school. So my age too, and the pop culture and just being really into that, hip hop was big for me. And what I loved about hip hop more than anything was the artistic value it brought and creativity when it came to album covers. Yeah. The songs having a holistic approach to, like, for example, Outkast, when they released Aliens, AT-Aliens, forgive me. It was, the concept of them being outcasted by their name, meaning you had the East and the West hip hop groups, right? But then they're coming out of the South, so they weren't really getting the light shined on them, right? And so they released this album that's just different. They did like a comic book style with, the old CDs. You get the full cover, and then the songs, when you go into it, all had the extraterrestrial kind of theme going on. And just that creative outlet for me is what I loved. And so obviously when you're growing up in that era, we all think we can rap. And so we all start doing our own little rap things and creative outlets. But what I enjoyed most was delivering a message. An overall message that you basically, from the album name to the cover to the titles of the song. And, there was a time in my life where I started really reading Christian books. And so, I didn't really read too much before. You're like, how'd you get through school, man? I don't know. Sometimes I don't know, but I didn't really have good reading comprehension. They picked that up, I think, when I was like in 3rd or 4th grade, put me in a resource class and try to help me, because I would read and my ADD I'd read one sentence and I'm already thinking about playing basketball and afterwards, but I'm still reading. Right. I don't know if that's a common thing, but I'm just like reading through all the pages, but I'm not even thinking about what I'm reading. And so I got to stop myself and I got to go back and reread.
And think about it at the same time.
So hard for me. Yeah. So it was such a challenge really getting into something. But when my wife, Tiffany's mom, started introducing me to pastors who have books, I think that was the first time I really started reading. And it was like, maybe it's the subject matter and my interest. Yeah. But it would catch my attention, and I was hungry for the knowledge at the time, and I just started reading books like crazy. I was reading like John Piper, John Bevere, I was just gonna name a whole bunch of John the Baptist. John the Baptist. And then reading the Bible too. That was always challenging for me because the King James version is like talking, for me to talk to Filipinos and it just is a whole nother. Is in there. It's like it was hard for me, and so once I recognized there's different versions. That's how I think ignorant I was to even the Bible world. I didn't realize there was like a whole bunch of different versions. And so just started reading the Bible. I think it was around 26, 27 when I really started reading. Isn't that crazy? Like the rest of, I'd read like a Facebook post or, I could read, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just the comprehension part. Like, it was just, it had to have my interest. And so.
For sure. Reading was just, I wasn't a fan of it. I think
man.
I can probably only read, I can count the number, on my hand, how many books I've read in terms of like fiction and stuff like that. Yeah. Like you said, it just wasn't, I have to be super interested in it. But it's tough. But now looking at it in hindsight, it's like, bro, like you never used to like to read, but now you have a book.
Yeah, I think it's a God thing. It's reading. I fell in love with reading now. When you got like John Bevere, I'm a big fan of his books just because his style of writing it's an easy read.
Yeah.
I'm not the intellect guy who needs the big intellect book. Yeah. Only when I used to rap, I used to like big words. And so Tiffany knows this. I would just I'd have a dictionary and thesaurus and try to find the biggest words I could because it was always fun, right? So like constant competition of decisions through my retina, my vision, a collision of all dispositions. But I don't know what I just said. It was just fun to rap like that, right? So
do you remember your raps though? Like I always think about this when I think about like rap. Because you got guys that have been in the game like Nas for a long time, Jay-Z, all the top guys.
We have a name for it. It's called the goodie sack.
The goodie set?
Sack.
What does that mean?
Like, a sack.
Yeah.
It's a goodie sack. So you got all the goodies in there.
Yeah.
And so basically it's kind of like in the mental bank. You
just pick it up?
Yeah, you have a goodie sack.
What in the...
So like the trick is just remembering the first 3 words and then the rest is just, it's like a machine gun. Yeah.
I always wonder, I'm like, dude, how do people you have a ton of songs, you've been in the game for a while, how can you just pick it up like?
Yeah, so when I started doing my hip hop with Jesus lyrics, I used to reach out to people, but I'd have that in the goodie sack, and it had more value to me to rap to you in person, like we're just chilling, like spoken word, but I loved making music and all that stuff too. It's writing a book, man, let's just say this. It took 12 years to meditate.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is I didn't think of writing a book 12 years ago, but this is 12 years in the making. And, when we started our podcast in 2021, this is our 5th year, man.
I know that's...
Now
I know what.
Yeah.
Yeah, you told me.
I think in the process of that first season podcast, I felt like there was a message being birthed that was there for the past, 11, 12 years. And so after listening to those, I like, okay, God, I want to hone in on this message you're putting on my heart, because everything that we are sharing and that's in the book is just the walk that me and Tiffany took as being business owners, but having the builder of all things with us in that process. And so what I've learned is like people, and there were seasons where people would ask like, oh, how do you do this and that? Everybody wants to do some gem sharing, right? Like, how do you do that? And so really, there are like business practical gems we could share and certain things, but ultimately like, it's the stream we're on and who's with us that's really the power source behind everything, right? And so, I just wanted to like get it on paper, man, document it. And I think me and my wife are in a season of, we have our 4, blessed with 4 children, who 3 are married, 1 to be married pretty soon, and 13 grandkids. And so the big word for us in this past year or so is legacy, and what are we doing to prepare to pass down to them is number one. And so that kind of, I guess, birthed the idea of getting it, into a book. So like we go look at the acknowledgments on the book, it's like obviously God, my wife, and then my kids, but my grandkids.